Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Allie, and on my channel we talk about books, so let's just get right into it. This video is going to be my September wrap-up and my October TBR. The October TBR is a little bit tentative, but I did read a lot of books in September, so I'm feeling very good about my progress. So September was actually my best reading month of the year so far. I finished 18 books. Majority of them were on my Kindle. I did get a new Kindle this month. I posted a video about me unboxing my Kindle, so you can go back and check that out if you'd like to. But I was able to read a ton of books because of that. So we're gonna just go in order, first book that I read to the last book that I read, talk about my rating, quickly touch on them, and then we'll get over into the TBR. So the very first book that I read in September is actually the only physical book that I read all month, and that was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I think that I was a little bit let down by it because I was filming a spoiler-filled reading video, and so I wasn't really vlogging it. I was kind of just spoiling the whole thing, and I had to really think hard about my notes and stuff like that, and because I did that, I think that it kind of ruined my reading experience, which is why I think that the rating is as low as it is. However, the book was good, it was entertaining, it just maybe didn't work for me because of the way that I read the book. So I definitely take some of the blame for that, but Riley Sager is one of my favorite authors, and I do recommend you pick this up if you're interested in thrillers. You might enjoy it. The next book that I finished was Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. This was a reread for me. I was just working my way through the Hunger Games series and decided to pick this one up, obviously, in the series. I did bump my rating down to a 3 stars for this one based off of, previously I think it was a 4 star. This time I went down to 3. I just think Mockingjay is not my favorite in the series. It's, I don't know, it just doesn't follow that classic Hunger Games vibe like the other two do. So this one just doesn't really live up the way that I would want it to. But overall, it's a solid story. I do actually have a physical copy of it here, but I don't have the dust jacket. But yes, I did finish Mockingjay as well. The third book that I read was Beaches, Bungalows, and Burglaries by Tonya Kappas. I gave this book 3 stars as well. I enjoyed this book. It's really short. It was like a 5-hour audiobook. However, I had a little bit of a hard time kind of following it, and I did guess the ending of the murderer. So overall, it was just kind of a solid 3-star story for me. I did enjoy it. It wasn't a bad book by any means. I do plan on continuing on with the series, but it wasn't anything blown out of the park fantastic. The next book that I read was You Shouldn't Have Come Here by Geneva Rose, and I went into this book with very low expectations because I did not like The Perfect Marriage at all when I started it. I actually DNF'd it and did not finish it. I do know how it ended. I had a friend that explained everything that happened, and I still don't think I would have liked the book, so I'm glad I put it down. But I really liked You Shouldn't Have Come Here. I gave it 4 stars. It definitely wasn't 5-star material, but it was very twisty. It was very hard to decide what was wrong, who was the bad person, what was going on, and the ending came out of nowhere. So I definitely recommend kind of going into this one blind, but I thought that it was really fun and I really enjoyed it. The next book that I read was Frost by C.N. Crawford. I adored this book. It was amazing. It follows our main character, Ava, and she kind of gets swept into this bachelor-style dating game to become the Queen of Fairy and marry the Seelie King. And he decided that he wanted her to become the Seelie King or Seelie Queen because he needed somebody that he couldn't fall in love with because he was cursed to kill anybody that he loved. So this obviously is a romance about him falling in love with her as she's going through the trials and the episodes of becoming the queen, and it was really enjoyable. I definitely liked it. I thought that it was fun. I definitely recommend it. We'll get to my thoughts on the second book in a minute. The next book that I read was The Risk, which is the first book in the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I liked the series a lot as a whole. I read them so close back to back to back that I don't remember details of like each individual book except for the last one. So to be completely honest with you, I can't give much of a like detailed description or review because I did read it so quickly with the other ones. But I'll give you, once I've talked through my ratings for the other books, I will give you kind of an elaborate like review of the whole series. The next book that I read was Spy Family Volume 1. I gave this book a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It kind of put me into a rabbit hole of reading the Spy Family series, which you will see in a minute. I really enjoy it. I'm a big fan of mangas. They're fun to read. They're quick reads. And I just really like that. And I like the like Japanese culture. I think that it's so much fun. And I really love mangas, and I really loved this series. So I'm not done with it yet, but I really loved the first book. This is kind of the same situation where, because I read them so back to back to back, I don't have like an elaborate review of them individually, but I can give you a review of what I've read so far, which I will do when I get to the end of it. The next book that I read was Sidetracked by St. Abbey. It's the second book in the Mindfuck series. I gave this one a 3.5 stars. I think that this one was one of my least favorite of the series. I don't remember exactly why. I just felt like not as much happened in the second book as the first book and the third and fourth books. So I enjoyed it. It wasn't like anything bad. It just didn't quite have as much content and as much entertainment value as I wanted from it. The next book that I read was Scarlet Angel, which is the third book in the Mindfuck series, and I gave this book a 4 stars. I do think that this one was one of my favorites in the series. It was really enjoyable, and I really enjoyed it. It was fun. I think that this is one where things started to get interesting, which was what I was looking for in this series, because the first 2 books are a lot of like build up, and then this is where like the plot starts to really thicken and get to be entertaining. And then I finished All the Lies, which is the 4th book in the Mindfuck series, and I do think that this was my favorite book in the series. I thought that it was really entertaining, and it was cool to see the characters kind of interacting the way they did. However, the ending of this book really pissed me off, but it was resolved in the 5th book, which is what I read next. All the Lies I did give 4 stars. And then the last book, Paint It All Red, I gave a 3.5 stars again. I do think that the last book was lower for me because it felt a little unrealistic in the ending, which I understand in a book like this. You kind of have to like put aside your expectations because there's no such thing as a happy ending in real life in this situation. And so, yeah, I didn't love it as much, but it was still entertaining. So the Mindfuck series as a whole follows our main character, Lana, and she is a serial killer. She went through something very traumatic as a kid, and she's basically enacting vengeance on everybody that harmed her in this traumatic thing that happened to her. And so she is a very like morally gray character because we really like her as a character, but she is murdering people, but she's also kind of doing it for a reason, which puts you in a weird situation as the reader because you have to decide if you like Lana or if you don't. I think that at the beginning, she wasn't my favorite, and then as we got farther into it, I did start to enjoy her character more, and I did start to sympathize a little bit, which is scary in the mind of a serial killer like that, but it was really cool. And then it also follows our second main character, Logan, and he is an FBI agent, and he was such a fun character to read from. I really enjoyed him, and Logan and Lana are in a relationship. Obviously, Logan doesn't know that Lana is a serial killer, and Lana knows that Logan is an FBI agent. So she's pretty much hiding her real identity from her boyfriend, and people kind of start to piece together what's happening while she's going on these killing sprees, and it's very entertaining, and just, it's a good time. So if you're interested in that, if that sounds exciting to you, I highly recommend it. Every book is like, the longest book is 170 pages, so 5 books, they're all like under 200 pages. It was really fast. I read it really quickly, and I really enjoyed them. The next book that I read was Spy Family Volume 2. I do think that this was my least favorite of the Spy Family books so far. It follows the daughter, which I will give you, once again, more of like a synopsis of the series once I get through all the ones that I read. But this one does follow the daughter, which I thought was her story is the least exciting to me. I like her as a side character more so than like the main character. So I didn't enjoy this book as much as the other ones, but overall, still very solid. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it didn't deter me from the rest of the series, so clearly I'm still loving it. The next book that I read was The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This was my first Christina Lauren book, and oh my god, let me tell you that this book was so good. I did rate it 5 stars. I'm thinking I might bump the rating down to like a 4.5, 4.75, just because I felt like I listened to it so fast and I fell in love with it so fast and then kind of forgot some of what happened. But basically this book follows our main character, Connor, and he's a divorced father and he is a documentary producer, and he kind of gets like taken away, like his job gets moved over, and it's really hard to explain, but basically his boss is like wanting to go down different avenues, and so they start a dating show, and he finds this woman whose name is Fizzy, and he sees her on the back of a romance novel because she's a romance novel author. And so this book follows him putting her as the like main love interest in a dating show. I did quite a few books about dating shows this month, but she's like the main love interest as in the dating show, and his whole job is basically to find her perfect match and make her fall in love. In the meantime, he is falling in love with her. And so it's very heartbreaking and interesting, and it was just such a good book. And this was my first Christina Lauren book, and I am absolutely obsessed, and I cannot wait to read more from them because just wow. Anyways, the next book that I read was Thornhedge by T. Kingfisher, and this was my first T. Kingfisher book, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 3.75 stars. It was a novella, so obviously not something super long, so I didn't want to give it like too high of a rating because I just didn't feel like I knew the character enough for that. But it basically follows our main character, and she is a changeling. So she was taken out of her crib and brought and grown up in fairy, or a fairy type world. And another child was left in her place. And then 5 days later in like Earth time, and like 20 years later in her time, because the time just runs differently, she's sent back to basically take care of this child that took her place. So she's living with her parents that don't know that they're her parents. And it's very interesting because this fairy that she's taking care of, they don't know that she's a fairy, and she's horrible. And then it also takes place 200 years later when she is basically guarding a tower with a maiden in it, and a man comes and pretty much wants to take her away, but she can't leave because she's guarding this tower. Thornhedge was really entertaining. I gave it 3.75 stars. It's a good novella. It was like 4 hours on the audiobook. I actually heard about it from Tori Between Pages, and I think she does probably a better job of describing it than I did, but overall, it was very good, and I'm excited to pick up more from T. Kingfisher in the future. The next 2 books that I read were Spy Family Volume 3 and Spy Family Volume 4. I gave them both 4 stars. I really loved them. They were both just so fun. The 3rd volume follows Yor, which is the wife or mom in the situation, and then the 4th book follows the dog, whose name is Bond, which is fun too. So I really enjoyed them. Gave them both 4 stars. I think that they are some of my favorites in the series, up with the first one so far. And then I also finished Ambrosia, which is the 2nd book in the Frost and Nectar series by C.N. Crawford, which is the book after Frost. And I gave this book a 2.5 stars. I loved Frost. Frost was fantastic, and this book just did not do it for me. It was repetitive. It was just, I just felt like it was so, it could have been a novella, and it could have been like 100 pages because it was so repetitive, and I just felt like I was reading the same thing over and over and over. And the ending was good. It ended well, and I'm trying not to let the good ending skew my thoughts for the last week that it spent for me to read this book, because I just didn't enjoy it. I did not like it. I didn't think it was fun. And overall, I think a 2.5 stars could be generous, honestly. So yeah, take that with what you want. I do recommend you still read Frost, but maybe stop there. If you want to read Ambrosia, go for it, but just know that it's very repetitive and I was not a fan. And then the last book that I read in September was Spy Family Volume 5, and this book follows Yuri, which is Yor's brother. And I gave this book a 3.5 stars. So let me quickly just give you the rundown of what Spy Family is if you don't already know. It follows our main character, Twilight, and he is a spy. And for his mission, he has to basically like stop a war from happening. And so he's trying to get into contact with this very high up man without like blowing his cover. So he's given a mission to get married and have a child so that his child can go to school with this like high up person's child, and like they can get to know each other through that. So Twilight changes his name, or goes by a fake name of Lloyd Forger, and he adopts a daughter, and her name is Anya Forger, and she is a telepath. She went through some experiments of some sort when she was young, and now she can read minds. So Twilight, or Lloyd, is not telling his family about this mission. He's basically just like living a married life. They have no idea what's going on, except for Anya really kind of does, because she can read his mind. And then he meets Yor, and Yor works at City Hall, and she was getting old and needed to get married because she looked suspicious because she wasn't married, basically. And so they somehow decided to get married. It's really hard to describe it without you just reading it, but they decided to get married. And so it follows the three of them. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Yor is an assassin. And she didn't tell her family about it, but once again, Anya knows. So it's very fun, and it's just about this like family kind of keeping secrets and doing weird things, and it's fantastic. So I really, really love it, and I'm really enjoying it. Okay, those are the 18 books that I read in September. Let's just quickly talk about my October TBR. I'm not going to give any sort of a synopsis on any of these books. I'm just going to briefly mention the books that I'm planning on reading and some that I'm hoping to get to but are just kind of potentials. So first things first, A Court of Wings and Ruin. I'm actually currently in the middle of this, so this is just the dust jacket, but I am really enjoying it. It's a reread. I gave it 5 stars the first time. I'm going to give it 5 stars again, but I'm just loving it. Then I'm planning on picking up A Court of Frost and Starlight. This is the novella, or like I guess the 4th book in the series, if you want to call it that. This is also going to be a reread, but I just want to get through this as well so that I can pick up A Court of Silver Flames for the first time, because I've never read this book. So the goal is to finish off the ACOTAR series before the end of the month, which I think is doable if I just really put my mind to it. Another book that I'm planning on getting through is The Diviners by Libba Bray. The Made of Magic, I can't remember, I'll put it right here. Readathon is happening this first weekend of October, and so I'm going to be reading this for that. I'm very excited. I've owned this book for a really long time, and I'm just now getting to it, so very excited. And then these last 3 books are kind of potentials. The first one is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the follow-up book, or the second book in the series, for the Maple Hills series. The first book is Icebreaker. I am really excited about this. I love the cover. I think it's great. I also was able to get it at Barnes & Noble like 4 days early, because it doesn't actually release until tomorrow when I'm filming this. So yes, I'm very excited to get to this, and I'm hoping I can do it in October. The next book that I'm hoping and planning on getting to in October is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I don't know much about this other than it's dark academia, and I've heard really great things, and I'm really excited. And then the last book that is kind of a potential read is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Miro. I watched Plant-Based Bride's reading vlog where she read this book, and she absolutely loved it, and I saw it at the store and just had to pick it up, and I'm really excited to get to it. It's also dark academia. It's supposed to be like heartbreaking but also really good, and I'm really excited to pick it up, and I'm hoping to get to it in October. So that was a lot of word vomit, but I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I want to know down below what books you are planning on reading in October, and I hope that I will see you in the next one. Bye!